I know with all the layoffs, it's been really hard to find a tech job lately, particularly for junior engineers trying to get that first job. So I've decided to go and talk to some hiring managers. I was a hiring manager myself, and get you some advice in how you can make yourself stand out from all of those folks looking to get that tech job. And the first person I'm going to talk to is Jem Young from Netflix. Let's get right into it. Hi, Jem. How are you today?
Hey, Jack. I'm doing well. It's a little bit rainy here in Oakland, California, but other than that, it's a good start to the year.
Nice. I used to live down in Union City. So, yeah, in the area. I got the 510 area code phone number. 510 represent.
Not too far. Not too far at all.
Yeah. My favorite part of town. We're here to talk about junior engineers, and we asked some questions online about for junior. You're a hiring manager, and I've been a hiring manager in the past, and I know folks who want to get that first junior engineering job are looking for some advice from people who have done it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got your first gig, and just let's start the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me on, Jack. Like you said, my name is Jem Young. I'm an engineering manager at Netflix. I've been at Netflix about 8 years, just a little over 8 years, I think Monday or something like that. So,
hey, congrats.
Thank you. Yeah,
Nice.
Time flies.
Yeah.
I never would have thought that 8 years ago I'd still be here doing this and being a manager. But yeah, like you said, part of my role is being a hiring manager. Sometimes I hire for my team. Sometimes I help hire for other teams. So I talked to a lot of people, seen a lot of resumes. So I'm excited to have this episode.
Good.
A little bit about me. Oh, sorry. What?
No. Me, I'm excited as well. Yeah.
We're both excited. So a bit about me. I started in tech, many years ago. Many years ago.
You and me both.
Unlike a lot of people, I got my CS degree. I won't say unlike a lot of people. Because before I had my degree, I was always into computers for a long time, as far back as I could remember, since I was a young one, programming on my TI 83 in class,
Oh, nice. Wow. Okay.
Boredom is the best.
That was a graphing calculator, though. You could do some cool stuff on that thing.
You can. You like games and like really simple programs.
Yeah.
So I started with that, but I've always been into computers. So without a doubt, it's always been like the thing. And then when I learned that computer science was a field you can study and get into, that was what I did. There's no question. But for a long time, I tried to get a software engineering job, and I couldn't because I didn't have any software engineering experience. I didn't even know what coding was at a professional level. I was just an enthusiast, tinkering on Windows and the registry and like playing all that fun stuff. So what I ended up doing was going to school and getting my computer science degree, which I thought, okay, once I get my degree, everybody's going to hire me.
You're good. You're done. Yeah.
Good. I'm graduated. It turns out there's a big difference between theory and practice.
Right.
As anybody with a CS degree will tell you, very, very big leap there. But what having a CS degree helped me was making connections. And turned out my roommate in college, who was also in the CS program with me, helped me get my first role as a software engineer, who vouched for me. And of course, as part of my first software engineering role at a small healthcare startup, I had a lot of great mentors, and that's something really important in your first role is you got to have people to help you because you don't know what you're doing. It doesn't matter how good you are. You don't know what you're doing.
Right. Yeah. Huge difference between tinkering code and production code. And then every environment's different, and in healthcare, wow, there's a lot of, there's a lot of HIPAA compliance. I don't know if HIPAA was a thing back then, but a lot of compliance for sure.
I'm not that old, Jack. Yeah, HIPAA's but I think as an arrogant youth, I was like, I'm not going to write tests, or why do I have to structure my code in this way? That slows me down. And because, you have to follow someone else's conventions.
Yeah, exactly.
And fortunately, I had people who had a lot of grace with me. And it's like, no, here's how you do things. And then you wait a couple months, and then you come back to that code, and you're like, oh, okay, now I understand why we structured this code in a way, because other people have to work on it, and you have to come back to it, and you have to understand what you wrote.
Right. Yeah.
Which,
helps.
That's the way you should write code.
Yeah. For readability and maintainability first, really. Yeah.
Yeah. So during my first job, I got a lot of experience in terms of real world software engineering. That's where I picked up JavaScript because most, I knew Java. Like most people going into school, it's the language they teach. We could talk about that maybe some other time about the language to learn.
Oh yeah, it's an interesting topic. Okay, sure.
But as part of that, not only picking up JavaScript, picking up UI for the first time and falling in love with building things for the front end, building things I could show my mom and my friends.
Right?
And things like that.
Yeah.
So satisfying.
It really is. Yeah.
Versus like, hey, Jack, check out this Java service I built. You're like, cool.
Whoa, that API really rocks. I'm really loving your JSON schema. Is just rocking, man. That's great. Like, now I can show my mom. She's like, yeah, but, I can't find continue playing. Like, that's my problem with Netflix, but that's a whole different idea. But, yeah, okay. So you mentioned referrals. And I think, like, when I was went back to my experience getting my first job, it was really just, I was in high school. I got a gig doing like Fortran work. And then I met one, the guy who was kind of running that was also working at the University of Miami. And so he was like, oh, cool. Let's talk to this other person. And eventually it was like kind of referral. And that was how I think my first 5 or 6 jobs actually went. And so what do you think if I'm somebody who, how would I create those connections? Like what could I do to build some connections and get that first job?
Yeah, first, find a community, any sort of community. The state of the internet now makes it much easier to find a meetup or a Discord group or a Slack group or whatever it is. Find that community, find your niche, find your people that you vibe with, and then start building up connections, start making friends. One thing I encourage people to do is always be genuine in your interactions. Don't just be, oh, Jack, yeah, he works at that tech company. Let me go befriend him because maybe he'll give me a job, something. I get a lot of that, especially on LinkedIn.
Right. Yeah, the first thing people are like, they connect with you and then they're like immediately, how do I find a React job? Like, whoa, dude, I'm not a recruiter. Like, what? Hello, hi.
I've stopped accepting random requests on LinkedIn. I hate to do it, but
I'm getting there. Yeah.
Hey, can I get a referral? I'm like,
I don't know you. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I'm fine. So essentially, like when you make these connections to get referrals, you're essentially what a referral is someone vouching for you, saying like, hey,
I worked with this person. Right.
Yeah.
Or I met this person at a conference, seemed like they knew what the heck they were doing, or whatever, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And the fact is there's, I think 4.5 million software engineers in the United States, give or take a couple 100,000. There's a lot of software engineers in the world. How do you stand out from that crowd? And the big thing is like having people who know you and can vouch for your work versus like, oh, I'm a coder. Cool. Lots of people do that. That's not original. But it's like, no, this person's really good because they're on the cutting edge. They know how to speak well. They know how to communicate well. And they're always excited about the latest thing. And they like to level people up. Like that's the kind of referral you want. And that's the kind of, maybe not person, but.
Because that's the person you want on your team. Right?
Exactly.
Somebody who's, kind of come in with, some new, fresh ideas, but not try and force them on you, but be excited and enthusiastic about it. And yeah, exactly. The kind of person you want to work with.
Exactly. All of the people I've hired directly on my team have been referrals from someone else at Netflix. And the last person I hired just a few weeks ago was a referral from someone else on my team who had went to college together and they worked together. So
nice.
I know they hammer it in, and I feel like high school and college, they're like, you got to network. And you're like, that's for extroverts. I'm a heads down coder. People will know my work when they see my GitHub. But the fact is you have to network. That's the easiest way to find a job.
But that, I would say there is a value though in that GitHub, trail for sure. Certainly to demonstrate where your passions are, where your, in innovation, where your thoughts around innovation, like, trying new things. If you pick up HTMX and you're like, okay, I'll just, try it out and throw it into a repo and there you go. I'll show my HTML, whatever. But also writing, I think, there's so much opportunity out there to just take whatever notes you've created as you're like trying out something new and then just add a little bit of embellishment, throw it on a Medium. And now you've got an article that says, hey, this is how I set up TRPC on blah, 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 blah. And there you go. That's something if you're not an extrovert necessarily in terms of connecting with somebody, you can do that. You can, you can have another communications channel that demonstrates your interests.
Fantastic advice, Jack. Yeah, that's 100% the case. You don't have to be a public speaker, someone who has an excellent YouTube channel or anything like that. Find your way of giving back or communicating with other people. And that I hammer it home every time I talk to college students or whoever. I'm like, you have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to communicate. It's not enough to be a good coder. There was maybe a day for that when you could be like, oh, that's Jem. He sits in the corner. He comes back every couple months. With
he just cranks through code.
Cool yeah. The systems are too complicated for that these days. And you have to be able to communicate in whatever medium you can find. So I really like your advice there is, start a blog or Medium or Twitter, whatever it is.
And every level up the ladder certainly on the management side, but I think also on the technical side, like junior to senior to lead, each one of those is less coding, more communication, a little less coding, more communication and management and the personnel and the personal side. So yeah, you got to work on those soft skills.
Yeah. The way I like to think of it is you're building a house. If you're a junior engineer, you're probably going to be in charge of painting a room.
Right.
Self-contained.
Yeah.
If you make mistakes, someone else can fix it. You're not going to do too bad no matter what you do.
Yeah. You're not going to burn the house down, hopefully.
Hopefully. You never know. You never know. But as you get more and more responsibility, now you're overseeing 3 rooms, 4 rooms, and eventually you move up to, say, architect. You have to be able to put the whole system together. Right. And naturally, that doesn't mean you're in there painting a room. That's not the best use of your time. You're looking at how all these systems are coming together. And that's where you have to be able to communicate because people are at different levels, different skill sets, different focuses, and you have to be able to pull all that together and produce something. And that's a challenge that you don't appreciate until you're much deeper into your career and you see like how complex systems are built. It just takes really good communication.
Yeah. But getting out and starting as a junior is part of that process of learning how to communicate, how to communicate your skill set effectively in an interview, how to communicate through resumes and through articles and, all these. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do it early. To your point on GitHub, don't just make a GitHub and like, oh, here's a README and Markdown. And it's a quick, put some flair into it. Give it a logo. Yeah. Add some copy to it. Add like a help page or quick start guide. Little things like that show you have the skills to move on to eventually become a more senior engineer, even if you're junior. And all that builds up over time. So it's good to build that muscle when you're really early on.
One of the questions that we got from the viewers was around how do you distinguish yourself? And I was thinking, let me just throw this by you. Like, let's say you're doing Netflix, and I'm going for Netflix or whatever, and there's an API that I can get to for Netflix. I mean, that would be a way that I would distinguish myself would be to necessarily, like if I wanted to get a front end gig there, maybe use that API, put something cool on it, and that shows an investment in me wanting the gig, right? But also being able to adapt and learn and use your technology. Things like that would be a distinguishing way to kind of stand out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, again, there's millions of software engineers in the United States.
Right.
Millions more around the world. How do you stand out from that? Is you have to put in a little more effort. That's just the modern times where software engineering is more accessible, which is great, but that also means the market's a lot more crowded. So anything you can do to stand out in that way or demonstrate that you've went the extra mile to really work at this one particular company really helps you stand out. Of course, we can't just shout out like advice and be like, this is what you should do. The trade-off there is you can't do that for every single application you put in because that's just not a good use of your time.
Yeah.
And that's a tricky balance you have to figure out how to strike.
But with the ones you really want, I think you can kind of go that extra mile for. I think we all have like when we are going out interviewing or whatever, thinking about the next thing we want to do, there's sort of a ranked order of like, oh, I'd really love to work there, and that's the one, take that extra beat. And, as you're watching Netflix, hack away on some API and see what you can build, do something cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen some really cool projects that make people stand out a little bit, like a Chrome plugin or things like that.
Oh, yeah.
it's the beauty of the internet is you could kind of hack away on anything. If it's just a side project, you're not going to release it.
And so many of these services now are free. Like in terms of like trying to get developers on board, they're like, oh, we'll give you, database access with 10,000 records for free, and you're like, cool, whatever, done. I can host my whole service there. I can do the solopreneur thing, or I can go and make an interview project and really show off my skills. And you get to learn stuff as you're doing it too. It's like, it's not like you're just, cranking out version 15 of this. Throw in some new technologies, throw in some things you saw, like experiment with that too.
Yeah. And like in a crowded market, that sort of thing helps out. Anything you can put out that shows you go the extra mile. It doesn't just have to be, say, hacking on an API or something like that. I like coming back to your idea of writing a blog post or something like that. Something that shows you're more well-rounded than someone who takes instructions and spits out code. Like real software engineering, as we know, is a lot more than that. So show that early on, show that kind of potential. And someone says like, oh, hey, you don't have the skills yet. I'll just be honest, but I'm willing to invest in you because you invest in yourself. And that's really, as a hiring manager, what I'm looking for in kind of that early stage talent.
And another thing is, don't let perfection be the enemy of getting out there and just doing stuff. Like, if it's a blog post on how to set up, StyleX with Vite or something like that, it could be 600 words, and it's mostly code and it's mostly whatever. And it's like, hey, you need this, blah, blah, blah. But if somebody's searching for it and they're like, wow, that's cool. Okay. Who's this guy? Who's this person? Oh, that. Oh, okay. Let me talk to them. See if they're interested in doing StyleX. And there you go. And I've heard a lot of those stories as well. It's like, oh, I put out a blog on some semi-obscure technology that went non-obscure, that got a lot of pings. And suddenly I'm like, wow, you're the person for that. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah.
I think coming into tech, it's easy to say like, oh, all the good stuff's been invented or all the libraries have been made. And that is so, I'm trying to think of where we are in technology, but we're still in the caveman era where we haven't even discovered the wheel yet.
Right.
So the field is wide open. It may not look like that on the outset, but it's surprising how many tiny little utility libraries or tiny just different ideas or approaches to solving a problem come up and become the next thing. And it's like, oh yeah, just some woman who coded this up in my free time, and it turned out this was a good idea and people are using it and it just takes off. And that's still 100% there. And that's one thing I want everybody to take away is that there's so much innovation yet to happen. And you can't be, like you said, think about perfection or someone's already built that. Go build it yourself. You might build it better.
Absolutely. Learning stuff by kind of taking it apart and seeing how it works and making your own version. Oh my gosh. That's fun. I love that stuff. Figuring out like, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, but figuring out like I'll see some cool animation, like, oh, these guys are doing like some liquid thing and it's super neat. And it's like, okay, kind of take the code, rip it apart. Oh, wow, cool. There's some SVG stuff here. Cool, let's go. I love that stuff. It's great. And then you write an article about it and you're golden. You're good. Now you're the king or queen of SVG.
Yeah, exactly. One of the coolest or most memorable take-home exercises I gave to a candidate one time was we gave him a take-home exercise. You build out some UI or something like that. Doesn't really matter. But they built their own custom version of React. And
whoa!
It wasn't like the bells and whistles and all the APIs and all the shininess, but the principle of converting JavaScript into Markdown or not Markdown, HTML, and having all the events and all that is actually really simple. It's not too many lines of code. And it was cool they just implemented that because they're like, just to demonstrate they understand the core concepts. And that's the sort of thing that is easy to stand out in a crowd and demonstrate that like, hey, I'm not just a tutorial engineer. I'm someone who's gone my own path, made mistakes, and come back with some lessons. And that's the kind of person you want to hire.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a great question about how, so let's say that you get that interview. So let's talk about what stands out to you when somebody's working with you in the interview, through the interview process. Like what are interactions that you see, oh, wow, that's really good, or, ooh, geez, that's a red flag for me?
One thing I look for is, did they do any research into the role or the company? Do they understand how we make money? Maybe who our competitors are. It's really baseline stuff, but you'd be surprised the number of people that don't bother looking at that. Like, what sort of stack do we use? What sort of technology? All that's easily accessible, and it takes 5 minutes to look it up before an interview.
Yeah.
And if you don't know that, it shows up like, hey, how big is Netflix engineering? Blah, like it's stuff you can know. So showing up prepared and having those sort of questions or having that kind of context and background really makes a difference. I'd also say, and this is very underrated, the questions you ask me or the interviewer at the end, they should always leave time for questions.
Yes.
Is really, really, really important part.
So
and everybody
true.
skips over that. They're all like code. Oh, Jack, what do you like most about working at your job? Like that's
right. That's
not a good one.
Geez, I don't know. I don't have any questions. Like, really? Really? None? None.
Yeah. You're just that's an opportunity you're just throwing out the door.
Actually, I will say that the comment thread. So when I put it out there, hey, I'm talking to some hiring managers, you want to get their input on stuff. A lot of the questions I got were very tactical. Like, oh, how big is your engineering team? What tech stack do you use? Yada, yada, yada. Just go through that comment thread right there. Like half those questions are exactly the ones you want to ask, right? How do you adapt to change? When was the last time you did a tech change, or a serious, refactor, and what was it, whatever, if you want to talk about that or talk about your, the ladder, the progression ladder, there's so many things to ask. Yeah. I can't, it amazes me when people don't avail themselves of that time.
Yeah, it's surprising, and people won't ask these. I've seen people get through the entire interview process. Maybe they're really good, but ask poor questions, and then they start asking what's your engineering culture like? Or what do you find most challenging about your engineering culture? Like, how does that promote success? What does growth look like? I'm like, you waited all the way to the end to ask that. You could have done it a lot sooner. But yeah, ask good questions. Put some thought into it. Be thoughtful about it. Don't ask this. I mean, you can ask the same question to the same people if you have multiple interviewing rounds. That's fine, but don't make them all the same question, because we do take notes and we all see the entire interview and we know what you asked. And if you're asking the same questions, it's going to show up as like, maybe they're not as thoughtful as we thought because they didn't put that much time into it.
Yeah. I gotta say that advice to get some sort of prep to get ready for the company is so important. Yeah. And it is the first thing. Like in general, I would say the companies that I've worked at, our hiring process is primarily like hiring manager first. They're going to like just see if you're somebody that they want to trouble their engineers with talking to, because their engineers are busy, and they're going to take the hit of like whatever, or maybe it's the HR person or the recruiter, whatever. Another person like would ask those kind of initial questions. And yeah, if you're not like, oh, you are such and such and such and such a company. Cool. Like, I've never really heard of you before. This is just to put on my calendar, and I didn't even spend 5 minutes before the interview looking up your company. That looks terrible. It really looks bad.
It does. It does. And we can tell. We can tell when you show up not prepared. You're in a hurry. You're not in a quiet place. All these little things. Like, yeah, we know you're busy. We know life happens.
Everybody's busy.
Yeah, everybody's busy. But we're making time to talk to you, which costs the company money, which costs me time and effort. So, I expect the same. But I would also say, like, for anybody, a hiring manager, anybody doing the interviews, you should give candidates that too, because they're also taking their time. So
yeah, for sure.
Respect.
Yeah, I think when I get a whole bunch of interviews and I've got my initial filter, which you should probably talk about too, what kind of filters there are there. But if you make the short list, I'm going to look into you too. I'm going to look at your GitHub. I'm going to, just at least have some sort of look around to see what, if you contributed any open source projects, things like that. Just because, it's a two-way investment there.
Yeah. And to add on that, this one's maybe a little more controversial. Like, I'm going to look at your social media. I want to find out, especially if I'm serious about spending my time to interview you or hire you, I'm going to find out what kind of person you are. I want to see how you vibe with the team. I won't say, censor yourself on what you post, but be aware that other people that may look into you as a person are going to look at what you post. And I'll leave it at that. You can Yeah,
I've been surprised by some people that I've seen and posted just some wild stuff. And you're like, whoa, if I'm a potential, like, unless you're independently wealthy, what are you posting this for? Because, like, if an employer is going to look at this, going to be like, oh my gosh, really? Yeah. I'm
people
constantly surprised.
People that engage in, say, non-productive debates on Twitter or wherever, is that the person you want to work with in the long run? Is that like someone who's going to be antagonistic and things like that? You should have an opinion. You should absolutely have an opinion about technology, but don't get dogmatic about it, and don't, like, I don't know, cause drama and trouble because of that. I see that often, and I'm like, come on, kids, like, who am I going to hire? The person who's loud and obnoxious on the internet, or the person who's like more respectful in their communication? And
drama is a great way to get clicks and views and all that kind of fun stuff. And that's great. You want to have a million followers, sure, whatever. But at the same time, if you want to get a job, right, posting that, really helpful Medium article or really helpful, gist to do something, that's value. That's you adding something into the community, being a good member of the community.
Yeah, exactly. And I tell you, Jack, I've got kids. I've got a team of people I manage. I don't want drama. I really don't. I have enough of it in my life.
Yes.
So,
yes,
like you said, it's cool to get clicks and followers and all that, but when you're looking for a job, just be cognizant of people are going to look up who you are, and if that's the person you want to reflect, that's totally fine.
Yeah, and I did a video a while back, like, nobody wins a workplace fight. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. The fact that you caused the fight, or that you engaged and didn't try and de-escalate the fight, like, nobody wins that. Like, just not a good career move.
Very quickly if you're that type of person.
Yeah.
And it's worse for you because people won't engage with you. They won't give you like good constructive feedback to help you be better. Yeah. Because they're like, that person's not going to take it well, so I'm just not going to tell them.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
Everybody else is going to be doing better because they're building on each other and helping each other out. And you'll be left behind with your, own opinions, which, I've seen it before, and it's so sad and detrimental. But we're going off track here.
No, but it's really good advice though. So I did mention like filters on the resumes. Obviously, that's like step 2 is getting the resume in front of you. What are you looking for in terms of resume?
Resume, I look for a clear, concise. One thing I tell everybody is list out the technologies you have. You don't have to list them like I use this in this particular role, but sprinkle it in and then put it in bold, because that's what I'm looking for. My last role, I was looking for someone who had GraphQL expertise. So I'm scanning the resume. I'm looking for GraphQL, Node, TypeScript, really quickly. And if you're Java and C, that's an easy filter for me. And the same goes for just putting in your resume somewhere, because when I'm looking at a whole stack of resumes, say I had 1,000 resumes, I'm going to do keyword searches, and I'm going to just go to those people that talk about those technologies. So put the technology you put in there, make it accessible, make it readable, make your resume readable. I really can't stress, most people will never get the experience of sifting through a stack of resumes. I know you have, Jack, but it doesn't matter how flashy your resume is.
That thing with like the bars and stuff. Like, I'm 5-bar Java. What is that even? What do you mean? Like, is there some sort of certification for that? Like, what? What does that mean?
It's good to stand out a little bit, but not too much where it's distracting. Right. And where that line is, I don't know. It probably varies for everybody, but a little bit of personality in your resume is good. But readability, like emphasize readability. So we mean by that is don't make the text too dense. Don't make it multiple pages unless you have multiple pages of accolades or something like that.
Right. Which you probably won't as a junior engineer. I mean, yeah.
I'm not scrolling usually. Like, I'm going through resumes, and if it's like this long, I'm not scrolling. So if you really have to make it long, put the important information at the top. I think we talked about technologies, make it readable.
And if you want the gig, I would say you're going to have the job rec, and the job rec's going to say GraphQL, right? If I really want the gig at Netflix, I'm going to go and make sure that, like, I'm going to take my resume and I'm going to take out a bunch of stuff. And it's like kind of put that GraphQL stuff nice and high and talk about how I'm really into this. This is a big thing for me. Like blah, 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 blah. Right. Just invest that little bit and make I would say modularity in a resume is actually pretty good because you can just like hot swap in stuff. It's like, oh, I'm going for a Java gig. I'm just going to move up the Java stuff. Oh, it's, this gig. I'm going to go do that. Yeah.
Jack, that is great advice. Yes. Tailor your resume for the role you're looking for. Don't spray your resume. Like you said, if you're looking for a particular skill set or technology, put that in there at the top and emphasize that. You don't have to use the same resume for every single role you apply to.
Yeah. What are they getting? I'm going to look at your resumes across. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's so simple and surprising, but the number of people that don't do it is, So look at the job rec, look at your resume. Does your resume speak to the role? If not, tweak your resume a little bit.
Yeah. And if you're working with a recruiter and they say, hey, I've got a hiring manager over at so-and-so, and are you interested? And you go, yeah, cool. Let me give me the job rec and I'll take a look at it. And then I'll give you the resume that you're going to give to them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not hard, just a little extra work.
Yeah, exactly. It's really hard. I get it. It's hard if you've never been on the other side of the table. So, where I think we're trying to share our wisdom here from looking at thousands.
Being on the other side of the table.
Resumes, another one I hear often is, Jem, I have a lot of accolades or skills or credentials, whatever, and I can't make it fit on my resume. Put it on your LinkedIn page. You have like 20 cool open source projects, put them on your LinkedIn page. Because if I want to know more about someone, I'm going to go there next, because that is unlimited space essentially you can use. Yeah. But do not feel obligated to put it all on your resume, because if it's too dense, I'm just not scanning that far. I want to be a quick. Oh, interesting, Jack. Okay. Check your LinkedIn. That's another one I see. Such a big mistake is people don't fill out their roles. They just put like, here's my job and here's my title. That's it. They don't say anything about what you did. So take a minute, write a paragraph about what you're doing now, some of the projects you've delivered, things like that. Because we do look at LinkedIn. You can have your own opinions about whether it's good or bad, but like the fact is it's the industry standard.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with it. And I think actually it's becoming, now that X is kind of, I don't know, that's a whole story there. But it's always been like the more professional network. And the way that you conduct yourself, you really should go that extra mile of being super professional on LinkedIn. And when you're looking around for that job, make sure that you're using every feature that you can get on whatever plane you've got, to make yourself stand out. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the page to link out your GitHub, your blog posts, any videos you made, things like that. Throw it all in there. I want to see someone who's well-rounded. Those people stand out a lot more than, I'm an engineer, I did this thing. Well, I can't tell your personality or anything like that. So, give the hiring manager something to think about.
One thing I think is often, and this is a little bit tangential, but as a hiring manager, I just want people to know I want you to succeed. I actually want this to work. Like if you made it to where you're talking to me and I've got your resume and you've gone through all those filters and I want you to win. I'm not there to poke holes in your balloon. Like, so when it comes to like asking you questions and stuff, I'm going to try to get the best that I can see out of you, and help you win. I just want people to know that, I guess.
Yeah, that's wonderful perspective. And you're 100% right. We have a million, especially as hiring managers, we have a million other things we could be doing at any moment. And we're taking the time to speak with you. We want you to show up your best possible self. We're not trying to antagonize you. We're not trying to not give you the role. Because if we weren't going to do that, we wouldn't talk to you.
Right, exactly. You wouldn't have gotten this far.
I think it's easy to forget. Like it can often feel more hostile or more, I don't know, uncomfortable. But the fact is we do want to get to know you because we took the time to talk to you. Something about you stood out. So show up your best self. Let people know how to show up as your best self. Like, hey, I can't meet on Friday because I've got kids or something like that.
That's fine. Yeah. That's okay.
We're fine with it. Yeah. Don't feel like you're
wow, you have a family? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Who does that?
Right? But like even keeping that in the back of your head, I think hopefully mentally calms people during the interview. It's like, slow down, take your time. they want to see you show up as your best. And if it's not what they're looking for, it's not what we're looking for, but at least we know, and maybe we'll remember you in the future. That happens a lot more than people think. Is you were second or third place, but I really like them. I've said this about candidates before. I'm like, yeah, another 2 years, 3 years, let's come back and talk to them, because they have that trajectory that I know is going to make them successful. They just don't have the experience that I need yet. So all throughout that process, always make sure you show up your best self, even when things aren't going well.
Yeah. And I would say I've always kind of engaged in trying to get the hiring process to that point where I've been at companies where it's a lot more kind of, I don't know, leak codey, sort of that sort of thing. And there was no opportunity given to the person to really show off. And so I'll come in and say, hey, can we go and add something where it's like, why don't you walk me through a project that you've done recently and, walk me through the architecture, and then we'll see about making some changes to it. And that gives them an opportunity to actually play on their home field. It's like, I talk about this architecture all the time. It's my day job. So, hopefully I can explain it. And, you walk through stuff and that gives them, okay, this is the part where I can breathe and be myself a little bit, as opposed to, do tic-tac-toe and react for the 18,000th time or whatever.
Yeah, it's hard. I think a lot of things we're describing are a result of, we put probably a little more thought and care into how we hire. I'm not going to we're patting ourselves on the back here, but it's clear we dig a little deeper. But the fact is, a lot of companies don't. The fact is, a lot of companies maybe don't care at that level. So it is elite code type or hacker rank or that type of question. It is what it is.
But that tells you a little bit, I would say, on the other side, as to maybe this isn't the company that I want to work for. They're not going to invest in me or something. There's some tea leaves to read into that.
Yeah. And I can't cast judgment on those companies, because maybe you're hiring 500 engineers and, it's just not scalable to do it any other way. That's fine too. But it's important when you do have those initial calls with the recruiter or hiring manager, just ask them what the interview is. If they're like, well, it's a couple of hard CS problems and a leak code problem, I don't know. Maybe you're like, I'm not feeling that. You could find another role, or maybe that's the sort of challenge you like. That's totally fine. You could get both though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Actually, the coolest one I've heard recently is like this a la carte menu of options. It's like, if you want to do a take-home test, you can do that. If you want to do an in-person test, you can do that. And it was just like, that allows the person to like kind of play to their strengths. It's like, I'm more of a, take home person or whatever, That was a nice effect.
Yeah. I tried that before. It was like, hey, you want to do a 1 hour phone screen or something like that? Or do you want to do a take home? And, I want to make sure you show up your best self. And so a lot of people prefer to take home. That's how you code in real life. You have time. There's no one sweating you. Some people are like, I just want to get it done. And I think I do pretty well in the live code exercise. So sometimes it's not an option. We try to give people that flexibility, but generally you're always going to get a take home of some sort. That's the way I think a lot of companies should do it, because it takes more time, but it allows you to show up and understand and be able to walk through the code that you wrote, which is a much more natural process.
Yeah. Definitely. I do think maybe should be some caps, though, on the amount, like the size of a take-home test. I've heard some just crazy things, like 3-day take-home test. You're like, what? Like, come on, it's ridiculous. Really?
It should be 4-5 hours.
Yeah, max. Exactly.
Yeah. Which even that is a lot, but it'd be pretty hard to get a signal with anything less than that.
A couple pages, kind of a whatever, something shows someone an understanding of like data flow and our application architecture, whatever you're looking for. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'd say you're fortunate if you make it to the take home stage. When we talk about filters, so sometimes the hiring manager talking to you directly as like the first point of contact. Sometimes it's a recruiter or a talent partner talking to you. What's important is you have your spiel down, your elevator pitch about who you are, the projects you work on.
Yeah.
Bonus points are like, hey, here's the ways I want to grow. Here's ways I'm developing myself, things like that. Remember, if you're talking to, especially a recruiter, they talk to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. It is their job to talk to people. They don't know you. They don't care about you. It's not personal. So
they really don't. Yeah.
Get it down.
Game.
Yeah, it is a numbers game. So get your pitch down well, practice it. rehearse to yourself in the shower, whatever you have to do, but be able to talk about the work you've done, some of the challenges you've overcome, things you're looking for in a role. Like that should all be just second nature to you. So that when you get it out there, it's quick, it's easy. And this person says, hey, this person's a great communicator, or they've put thought into kind of who they are and they're self-reflective. All that shows up well. And that's how you make it to the next stage. If you don't, if you're like, yeah, I did this project. What did we do again? Was it React or was it Angular? I don't really remember now, but it was pretty cool. Again, put yourself on the other side of that table, and they're like, I'm not going to remember that person. They don't even know what they worked on.
Yeah. And to that point of research, right? Why are you excited about this company, this opportunity? And why do you think you'd be a good fit for this role at this company? Those are the two things you should be able to just bang. Oh, I really want to work here because I've always loved your stuff.
Yes.
It's great. I've used it in projects before, and I really think that I could add some value here. And I think this role is going to be fantastic for that. And I can see myself growing and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, this way or that way. Yeah. Got to have that. I would say that almost as more as important as the other stuff of like knowing your background.
That's fantastic advice, Jack. Yeah. Be able to speak to the role. Speak if they call out something particular in the job rec or the posting for the role. Talk to that. Like speak a sentence like, "Oh yeah, I really saw there's a lot of intersections between the data and UI side, and that's something I'm really passionate about."
Right.
Like that right there will put you in the 90% of or the 10% of people if you can speak directly to the role, because it shows again you put some thought into it. You put a little bit of effort, a little bit more than everybody else.
Yes. Yeah. And you should. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I don't spray and pray my resume around. I'm either talking with people that are referring me to a company and I want to make them look good or whatever. Maybe I've only got 2 or 3 in flight at a time. So I should know like everything about whatever each of those 3 roles. It's only 3 things, right? I mean, not hard.
Yeah. I'd say it's good to remember the person on the other side, probably a recruiter or hiring manager, they're taking notes about who you are. Whatever way they do it, they have to take notes. So if you can make that really easy for them, like bullet points of, I worked on this company for these years. Here's the role I had. I grew into this role. Here's some of the projects that I worked on. Here's some of the technology, stuff like that. And you make it really easy to give notes. That's little stuff that just makes you stand out a little bit more than someone trying to parse like, well, he told a 20-minute story about something, but I don't remember what it was about.
And for a junior engineer, I would say, if you were at a boot camp or you were in CS and you had a finals project or whatever it is, and you were the lead, you were kind of acted as the lead of the team or whatever, you took leadership over this or that, the other thing, like, say that, right? Say that, like, take ownership of those accomplishments, even if they're, I don't know, just in a boot camp or whatever. To say, hey, I made sure that we got it done, or that that it was type safe from end to end, or whatever you really took a hold of. Talk about how you sort of led that charge.
Yeah, again, great advice, Jack. Show me you've led something. Show me you are a leader. You've driven something, or you had an idea, and you helped execute it, or show me something a little bit different than, I can take instructions and I can write code. That's everybody. If you're a software engineer, everybody can do that.
I can close Jira's, boss. Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Fantastic.
Yeah. If you want to stand out, it's like, I was head of the ACM or, I organized this meetup group and I help mentor other people, or all these little other things which may seem superfluous to coding are really what makes a good software engineer. And that's the things we're looking for. And that's something you can do as a junior engineer, is like start leading projects, start showing up to things and demonstrate that and be able to speak to it, even if it's not a professional capacity.
Yeah. And if it's a little bit bigger than a 5-person startup, these kind of mid-sized to larger companies, certainly big companies I've worked at, like Nike and Walmart and big companies like that, they're always looking to get community outreach anyway. And so if you're out there saying I was part of the ACM or was part of, Women Who Code, or these sort of these kind of things. That's fantastic. I mean, that's a huge value add. And you're also saying that you have this community presence out there. You could potentially get some more referrals, make it easier on us to hire. And those things all look great.
Yeah. The main takeaway here is it's not just about coding. You could say, like, I'm a great software engineer. I know how to code. I know the APIs backwards and forward. I'm like, cool. Maybe that's important. Maybe it's not. But maybe we'll dig into that later in the interview. But for now, that just getting past that initial filter, I want to know much more about you, and I want to know like who you are as an individual and those people that have. Yeah, exactly. I'm making a bet on you, especially as a junior. I'm making a bet that you will grow more because when you start, especially if you have no experience, you're going to be a net negative to me and the team because we have to take our time to ramp you up. So what makes you worthwhile of that investment versus someone else? It's just like business. You've got your 401k, you got what you invest in Robinhood or something like that. How do you pick which stock to invest in? Which one's going to grow more? And it's the same thing for hiring. Who's going to grow into this role? Who can I say, like, that was a good hire 5 years ago because they've really made an impact? And that's the sort of thing, like, you have to demonstrate through your resume, through your extracurricular activities, through your leadership. All of that comes into play, not just your coding ability.
And going back to your point, which is excellent before, about how the social media stuff, and okay, sure, it may be controversial, but at the same time, there's only so much signal that we have for you, given that you're a junior engineer. There's maybe 1-2 projects you've got in GitHub. There's whatever your transcript is from your boot camp or CS or your college. And then there's your LinkedIn and your Twitter, or whatever. And if you're out there causing a ruckus, right, and the other person's out there talking about how they're doing this ACM stuff and really encouraging people to get to the meetup and all that sort of stuff, that's good signal. The causing a ruckus, that's not great signal.
Yeah. But the boring stuff is the stuff that sells, or it doesn't sell.
Well,
but that's the stuff that makes business work.
Right. Yeah. But I look back at you on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn, it shouldn't really have much of the spicy stuff. Hopefully, you try not to. Yeah.
People can be short-sighted sometimes.
God, I don't know. Yeah.
But I like what you said about we only have so much signal, and we're only going to go deep. We're not going to go super deep into your YouTube channel, probably. And part of that signal is when you actually, if you get the chance to talk to somebody, one, remembering they are taking time to speak with you, make it worthwhile. Like this is your moment. There's a million other things they could be doing. They're talking to you. So, show prepared, show respectful. But the other one there, especially as a junior with no real projects under your belt, is that's your chance to demonstrate your passion. I get really excited about technology. I code in my free time. I did this project. I really want to grow, or this person's my inspiration. And, that's something you can bring right there, easy. It doesn't take a lot of work. Like, demonstrate that you're hungry. You want to become a software engineer, and you're not just doing this for the money. There's a lot more to it than that. And that's the way you can show up super easily. Yeah.
And you want to be a software engineer, and you want to be a software engineer there.
Yes.
At your company, because this is meaningful to me, and that's why I'm taking this super seriously. Yeah. Absolutely. And by the way, thank you so much for talking to me. It's a real honor and privilege to be here. And after we're done talking, I'm going to send you a little email and say, thank you. That was really wonderful. Yes. Thank you for spending your time. These things, it's the little things. It's the little things that take a minute, 2 minutes, those little micro interactions, and just showing that you're a positive person, and you'll be a net value add, not just to the code. Sure, fine. I mean, me as a junior engineer, maybe not even then, whatever, but also to the team morale and spirit. You're going to bring some spark, some energy, and kind of, your unique flavor to the team.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you're selling yourself.
Yeah. Sure.
And that's how you have to approach it. Is someone wants to buy, they have a lot of choices to choose from. Why should they choose you? Right. And I know when I was younger, I kind of bristled against that. I'm like, well, I'm a good coder. Why do I have to sell myself? They should be lucky to hire me. But now that I'm older and I have more perspective, thankfully, I realize you have to be humble about it. You have to be, even the best coders I know are really humble about it. Like they don't talk about like, oh, you know, blah, 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 or create really clever solutions. Like they're super humble. They're confident in their abilities. They have opinions that are well established or well founded at least. And they show up in a way that I'm like, okay, yeah, this is someone that like I feel like could disagree with me, but we'd come out to the better solution at the end. And in all that, those little interactions on like how you show up online, how you show up in the questions, how prepared you are, your passion you demonstrate, has your resume just got a little bit something extra that makes you stand out? Like all these are signals that I want to buy, or that you're selling yourself. I won't say I want to buy you because that sounds wrong, but
that sounds but
that's how you have to approach it.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. Cool. Well, this has been super helpful. Thank you so much for spending your time with us and giving your insights into this.
Thanks for having me on, Jack. And hopefully we didn't go too far in the rambly course about social media and all that. But it was a great conversation.
Yeah, it really has been. Thank you. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that talk with Jem Young. I know I did. I had a lot of fun and learned a lot, but I'm sure you have questions. So put those in the comments right down below. Let's get the conversation started about how we can improve our chances of getting our tech jobs. In the meantime, of course, if you like the video, hit that like button. And if you really like the video, hit the subscribe button and click on that bell and be notified the next time a new Blue Collar Coder comes out.